Hi, I'm Dana and welcome to episode 7 of Learning to be Autistic. For anyone that's new, this series is essentially me saying, yo, it feels like there's been a huge big change because I've gotten this autism diagnosis, but technically nothing's different. So I'm having to figure out who I am as a person and as a recently discovered autistic person. And I'm just trying to figure myself out while hopefully helping other people figure some stuff out, offering some relatability, opening up some discussions and just trying to have a good time. So the first episode will be linked up here and let's get into this one. I've had this video in mind for like the longest time because work and jobs is one of the areas where I really struggle. And I think there's a lot of shame in saying that. Like, I feel a lot of shame for it and I don't think we should, but I do. Before we get too deep into it, as always, every autistic person is different. Some of us can have jobs fine, some of us struggle a bit more. You know, like my boyfriend's autistic and he's been working a full-time job for years now with no issue. My brother's autistic and he's been working and doing university with it's not the easiest thing in the world. People always still struggle, but people can do things, is what I'm saying. You know, autistic people can do just what anyone else can do. Only we might struggle a bit more, it might be that bit more difficult. And when it comes to jobs, it's not a case of me deciding I'm going to try really hard at this, I'm going to do really well, regardless of whatever struggles I face. I can't do that because I can't get past the interview stage. To try and keep this like somewhat linear, we're going to talk about interviews, and then I'm going to talk about my work experience. And then I'm going to talk about some of the accommodations and the ways that I've sort of gotten around it and figured out ways that I can make my life easier when it comes to working. Before you even get to the interview, there's the decision of do I put on my CV that I'm autistic? If it's an online application and they ask if I have any disabilities or anything, do I tell them I'm autistic? Is that going to mean I don't get the interview? I don't know. I personally don't have that I'm autistic on my CV. But if I'm doing an online application where they specifically ask if I have any disabilities, I do say that I'm autistic. And I haven't gotten any of those interviews, but I don't get an awful lot of interviews anyway. So I don't know. For me personally, I don't have I dropped out of college twice. I don't even have A-levels. So a lot of the time, I'm just not getting the interview anyway. And being autistic isn't helping that for me. But when it becomes more of an issue, because it's not really an issue in my situation, I'm probably not going to get the job anyway. But when people are fully qualified for the job and have experience in the role, and then they don't even get an interview and they happen to have told the company that they're autistic, or they tell them in the interview and then don't get the job, that's where it's an issue. But even without all of that, the actual interview process is not one that I'm good at. And you know, like I say, it varies from autistic person to autistic person. There's going to be some of yous out there that are acing interviews and getting every job you want, and I'm happy for you, but I'm not one of you. My experience of interviews is a mixture of selective mutism, screwing up questions and answering them as though they asked me a different question, or just straight up being I don't know. And, you know, it's not indicative of me getting a job. I apply for low tier jobs or whatever you want to call them. You know, I'm applying to stack shelves or work in McDonald's. It's fine. But when I've gone for that kind of job and then they're like, oh, so why do you want the job? Well, I'm not desperate to be mopping floors, am I? I want the money. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, you know? I have applied for some jobs that have a media or online focus where I can be oh, well, I've got my blog as all this experience, so I feel like I fit for this and I'll apply. And when they ask me why I want the job, I can tell them honestly, I love doing stuff online. I love editing pictures, I love writing, I love editing video. I love just all of the stuff that comes online, all of the interaction with different people. It's great, I really enjoy it. You know, I can answer that. When it's a menial job and they're so why do you want this job, Dana? Because I want the damn money, obviously. No one wants to give up 8 hours of their life every 4 days or whatever to mop up or stack shelves for the passion of the job. And my autistic brain is just there's no other answer. I don't know what the hell I'm meant to say. Am I supposed to be oh, you know, I love cleaning products, you know, that little lightheadedness you get when you're using too much bleach. Oh, can't wait to work with that. You know, it's not how it is. And I've also had a lot of interview situations where it's not for the job I thought I was applying for. And that's always embarrassing because, you know, I've gotten all dressed up. I've like had my mum give me a lift to wherever. I get to the interview thinking I'm going to sit down and tell them like all the reasons that I can do this online job or whatever. And then they're like, oh yeah, so you're going to go with this guy to Chester on the train and you're going to like stand outside a shop and market things to people. Isn't that great? And I'm like, no, you told me this was an online job. You told me to come to the interview, not the trial, which I'm not getting paid for, and I've got to pay for my own train ticket to Chester. Like, I think other people don't end up in that kind of situation as often because to some degree there's like an obvious, like it's not, you're applying for something dodgy here. And I just don't see it. It's not obvious to me. So I've had a lot of job interviews where I've sat there thinking like, I don't even want this job. Like, I'm not going to get it, but I don't even want it. And I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm not going to know what to say to them, and it's just kind of a shit show. And with the selective mutism, it's not something I experience that often anymore. It was kind of a big deal for me when I was a kid sometimes. Nowadays, it's predominantly on the phone. I just cannot speak. But in interviews, it happens way more than I want. And it's so embarrassing when they've asked me a question. I'm moving my mouth, and I just can't make any bloody words come out. Like, it's a lot of these, like, kind of struggles that I have are very laugh or cry. That's why I'm so cheery in videos, because otherwise I would be sobbing. It's really just frustrating, you know? Like, I wouldn't be crying because it upsets me. I'd be crying because I'm so damn frustrated by it all the time, because I know I'm the only person that can fix it or whatever, but I also can't fix it. Right, so I'm 24 years old, and in my entire life I've had 5 jobs, and most of them didn't last a week. Just to run through them, my first ever job was a paper round when we lived in Denmark. I got this whole like big trailer that I was supposed to attach to my bike, but if I attached it to my bike, I would be like standing on the pedals, like jumping on it, and it did not move because it was so bloody heavy. So I used to just like drag it around. I'd deliver papers. Next to no one spoke to me, and when they did, I'd just be like, I didn't speak Danish, sorry, and like run away even though I could speak Danish. And I did that for like a year and a half, I think, because I didn't have to speak to anyone. I could do it basically when I wanted. I had like a 4 or 5 hour time slot in which they needed to be done. So I just sort of like, you know, I could leave at like 2 hours and go, okay, I'm gonna go do it now. And once I'd saved up for my iPod, I just binned it in. Like, I was like, 13, 14, I was a kid. It was a kid's job, it was a paper round, what do you want? Then obviously I was in school, I went to college, dropped out of college and had like 3 years of extreme autistic burnout. And then I signed up to an agency job when I was in college for the second time at 18. I got 1 shift from them at a burger bar at Anfield Stadium. It was one of the most stressful days of my life, just all these football fans shouting at me. And it was another case of this isn't what I expected, because I'd been at the interview. It wasn't an interview at all. It was a training session that wasn't paid. So I'd gone in with a bunch of other people and we were taught how to do silver service. Like, I was taught how to use the little tongs and like, oh, when you pour wine, you have to have your thumb in the dip and make sure the guests can see the bottle as you pour it like this. So I was like, okay, we're gonna be like in the boxes or something, like serving the posh snobs. And I got put in a burger van, you know? I'm not posh enough to be bothered about working in a burger van. Like, it really didn't faze me to be working in there. It was just that it was not what I expected, and it was so incredibly social. I was put on the till and people were ordering to me, you know, and I was like, okay, I got the first one, can you give me the next 5 ones again, please? You know, having someone just give me all these orders and I've got to press all these buttons on till I didn't know how to use. It was a nightmare. And with it being agency work, it was only for 1 day. And the agency never contacted me again. I don't know, maybe I did do terribly actually, because I kept screwing up the till without realising. So it got to the end of the night when they had to tally up the till and they were like, Dana, your till's like £15,000 short, but we're also pretty sure you didn't bring in £15,000 today. So they had to print off like the whole receipt. And it turned out that there were times when like I'd charge people like £500 for a burger and chips instead of a fiver and stuff like that. So I just screwed it up. But in my defence, there was no manager and no one actually told me what to do. It was very much, here's your till, there's your customers, off you go. And I was just like, okay. My next job technically lasted for 3 days It was at Amazon, so you can already imagine what that was like. At the interview, I told them, like, I like computers, I'm quite good with computers, you know, like, I wouldn't mind a little IT department job. And they were like, we'll get you in that IT department, don't you worry. And then I showed up for my first day, got given a stick and told I was a jam buster. So you just need to walk around this, like, several mile fucking big warehouse, and if you spot something stuck, prod it. So I just spent a whole day walking around the warehouse, never seeing anything get stuck. And then just sobbed on the way home because I was like, so like, there's just noise all the time. And everywhere you go is super, super bright. And people keep talking to me and asking me what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, oh, I'm a jam buster. And they're like, well, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it's my job to like walk around with my stick and prod things. You know, these people are looking at me like, that's a job. Like, why can't I have a job that easy? But it was just so much for me. And the second day I had like a breakdown essentially, and they told me to go home, so I did. And then they called me back on the third day to have like a whole meeting about my anxiety and everything, because I didn't know I was autistic yet. So all I could tell them was like, my anxiety is absolutely kicking me in the ass and I don't think I can work here. And they pretended to give a shit and basically told me like, oh, maybe you should not come back. You know, so I didn't get fired from Amazon, but they didn't want me there either. And then my last job was by far the one where I learnt the most, because it's very, very common for autistic people to end up being underpaid, overworked, all that kind of stuff. And I fell very much into a trap that I trusted completely. I now feel completely like taken advantage of and like a complete idiot, because I worked for 2 years being paid less than £200 a month. And bear in mind, sometimes I would be there for like 14 days straight, you know, like 7-8 hours a day kind of thing. Sometimes I was there and the boss would literally just leave and like go into town for a nice time while I worked. It was kind of, looking back, a massive shit show. And I just didn't pick up on it at the time at all. And like, most of my family members were telling me like, you need to stop working there. Like, you're being really used. You're being really taken advantage of. You're barely getting paid and you're doing a lot of work. You know, and some of it was online based. So even after I'd done like 6 hours there, I was coming home and doing another like 4 or 5 hours of work on it, because it was a company that I very, very deeply cared about. I really loved what we were doing there. And I think that's why I just overlooked so much. I was like, yeah, I'm barely getting paid for putting in a lot of work. But he told me it was going to be a job for me at the end of it. You know, he told me this and he told me that and they told me this. And I just got completely strung along for like just over 2 years. And I never got paid the last month work that I did, which would have been like, I think the largest yet, it would have been around £200 instead of significantly under. But I feel like it's a very common story for autistic people. I completely trusted the man that I was working for/with. I 100% trusted him. And when it all fell to shit as it did, I realised that I'd really screwed up and I shouldn't have trusted him, and I really should have kept more of me to myself kind of thing. And it's really upsetting, because it's a company that I deeply, deeply cared about, and I really thought I was going to be working there like well into my 30s kind of thing, you know. I wanted to see that business take off and do incredibly well. But the upside of working for a small business like that is that I both made some connections, and it meant that I could really figure out what kind of accommodations I need, you know. And it kind of sucked because I made my own accommodations there a lot of the time. Like when I was looking for the product that we sold, I'd turn the light off and use my phone torch because the buzzing of the light drove me insane. And being able to just see all of this like colour of all the different products, like, was just so overwhelming for my eyes. So I could just turn the light off and I'd have this little area where I'm focused on and I'd find what I was looking for. And then the boss would come in and be like, oh, turn the light on, what are you doing? There you go. And it's like, I didn't fucking want it on, dude. Or he'd tell me that I needed to do something a different way to gain this result. And I'd be like, oh, but I've done it like that. Like, it didn't gain that result. I've done that and it didn't gain the result. So we need to find something else. And he'd just be like, no, but you haven't done it. You haven't tried it, have you? You need to do it like this. And it's like, you're making excuses. And it's like, I'm not making a bloody excuse. I'm explaining to you what I'm struggling with. And I don't understand why you're not helping me rectify the situation. It was just a lot of frustration a lot of the time as I tried to put in accommodations for myself, just to have them taken away. But the upside to that, obviously, is that I've made my connections and I've learned the accommodations that I can do for myself and how I can push myself in certain ways to be able to do more than I would have expected myself to be able to. And it means that I've got a really exciting opportunity coming up where I might get to work at some events and maybe do some workshops, get to do some eBay stuff. And there's gonna be, I don't want to go super into it, and I'm still very it might not happen though, it might not happen, good things never happen to me. But I'm trying to keep my hopes up and be no, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna work with people I like working with, who actually have a plan and stick with things and get things done and know what they're doing. And it's gonna be good, it's gonna be great. And it's gonna involve, if everything goes to plan, touch wood, I'll be traveling a little bit as well as working with all these people, and it's very much, all of it's stuff that I've always wanted to do, but didn't have the opportunity to, and didn't know how to create the opportunity for myself. And it's all stuff that scares me. It really kicks off my anxiety. I've very much learned that having a standard job doesn't work for me. I really wish it did. It sounds like such a special snowflake mentality of I can't work in B&M, it's just not for me. I would love to just be able to do a till job, just have a normal fucking job and just do that. It'd be really nice, get you a bit of money at the end, you know what you're doing all the time. But that kind of thing just completely overwhelms me, and I end every day absolutely in tears and completely burnt out and just feeling like absolute crap. So getting these more alternative jobs, I suppose, I've learned that that's what works for me. And it also means, when I was cripplingly anxious and in tears about going into work at Amazon, there was also the underlying fact of, I don't want to go to work at Amazon, I want a job, I want the money. I don't want to work at Amazon, I don't want to go into work. No. Whereas with this job, it's a case of, yeah, I'm real anxious about it. I'm going to have to travel and meet new people and talk to people and learn new things and try and keep myself organised and act like an adult. And it's anxiety inducing and scary, but also the actual job and the things that I'll be involved with and the things that I'll be doing, I'm so excited to do. It's that much easier to shove your anxiety out of the way and just fucking stamp all over it when it's something that you're actually excited to do and looking forward to, rather than I don't want to get out of bed today because I have to go and do this job that I hate. And I totally appreciate that I'm in a very privileged position to be able to just be I don't work. A lot of autistic people work because it's a case of well, you're not eating otherwise. I'm aware that I'm incredibly lucky and privileged that my boyfriend does the full-time job so that I don't have to, essentially. But at the same time, I want to work. I want to contribute to society. I want to have money of my own that I can spend. I want to feel satisfied with the work that I've done. That's why I liked the last job that I had. That's why I'm excited about the next job. So as much as it is a privilege that I don't have to work, it on a personal level, it's yeah, but I want to, it sucks. And when I meet new people and talk to new people and stuff, and they're oh, what do you do for work? And I have to be oh, I'm unemployed at the minute. I feel such a deep sense of shame. And it's silly, because when other people tell me oh, I'm unemployed at the minute, or they're on universal credit or whatever, I don't think twice about it. I'm just oh, okay, file that in my head. They're not on that, that they haven't got a job. I don't judge it in any way. It's just you don't have a job right now. But when I'm the one saying it, I'm God, you fucking don't work, you're so lazy, you're so stupid, you're too dumb to have a job, it's just my own self fucking esteem, isn't it? It's not anything else. But I think that is the case for most autistic people that don't work. We would like to be able to. We want to have independence and our own money and feel like we're a valuable part of society and be able to be satisfied with the work that we've done in a day or a month or a year or whatever. We want to be able to build something for ourselves and have careers and have money. But it's real hard to do those things in a work environment because it's not made for us. I look at so many jobs and I'm I could easily do the work. I'd enjoy the work. I think that I'd like the people that work in that field. but you want me to come into some like stuffy office where I'll feel like my skin's about to fall off all the time and I can't control the temperature and the lights are too bright and there's too much going on and that person keeps talking and that person's clicking a pen and there's cars going past outside and like, it's all so overwhelming all the time, and then you want me to focus and do work. You know, and then put in like, you've got to dress right for the job, and I don't really pick up on how people are meant to dress. I love fashion, obviously, but it's a case of like, if you told me to dress like business casual or business formal or business anything, I'd put a suit on. I own one suit and I would put that suit on and be like, people wear suits for work, right? If you told me it's just casual, I'd be showing up in like leggings and a t-shirt because that's casual, right? You know, I don't pick up on all the little unspoken things of the workplace that everyone else picks up on. And in my experience, when I've tried to ask about them in the brief jobs that I've had, you're sort of laughed at, and it's like, why don't you know that? And it's like, because I don't, my dude. And like, I guess now I could do it because I'm autistic and make them feel like a dick. But like at the time, I didn't know that. So I was just like, I don't know. I just know that like, I'm not fitting in here and doing the things like everyone else is. And I don't understand how they can and I can't. Like when all the work at home stuff came around because of the pandemic and all that, I don't want to say excited about something that came because of a pandemic where loads of people have died, like, but I thought that could be a step forward for me, because I would be able to work from home on like pretty much anything. It doesn't matter how boring the job is or whatever. I'm pretty sure that provided I have like the knowledge to be able to do it, you know, like if you set me up as like a neuroscientist from home, no chance. But if it's, you know, something like online media kind of stuff or whatever, I could very easily work on just about anything from home that's within like my skill range, is what I'm trying to say. But it feels like they're trying to shove everyone back into the office as quickly as possible. And they're not really, at least for me in my area and the jobs I've looked at, I'm not finding any that have worked from home. They sort of only work from home if you already had the job when the pandemic hit. I very much think that work from home could easily transform things for people with disabilities. You know, not even just mine where it's like, well, it's easier for me to work in my house because of like my own issues. But like just so many people would be able to join the workforce and like earn money and be more self-sufficient and independent and all the things that we want to be if we could just work from home. And like, surely it's easier for companies for us to work from home as well. Like, you don't need to heat the building or light the building or do all these other things. Like, hell, if you exclusively have a workforce that works from home, you don't even have to have a building. You're saving on rent and everything. Like, I don't understand how it's not a good idea. To wrap this video up, I pretty much just find working jobs really frustrating because it would take so few accommodations in most jobs for me to be able to do them and do them really well. So to wrap this up, I kind of find working jobs just really frustrating because there's so many minor accommodations that could be put in that would make it so much easier for me and probably lots and lots of other autistic people to work at normal jobs and do really bloody well at them, you know? And I feel like due to my autism and anxiety and the way that I react in interviews and my lack of education and my lack of like lots of things, you know, it just feels like everything's sort of stacked up in a way where unless it's getting a job through connections where they've seen that I can do the work, I'm very passionate, I'm very enthusiastic, I try my best to be like nice to everyone and work as a team and, you know, I can work. But it feels like that needs to be seen by someone before I get the opportunity to further show what I can do. So when I'm applying to jobs and doing interviews and that, they just have a piece of paper, I get it. But it just feels like I've never quite gotten the opportunity to prove myself and like show myself and everyone else how good I can be at a normal job. And it sucks. But at the same time, you know, I'm very lucky to have made connections at my last job that are gonna hopefully provide me with my next one, which I think I'll really enjoy. So final words. It's not impossible for disabled and autistic people to get jobs. It's not easy for autistic people to get jobs, but plenty of us have them. But having said that, only around 22% of autistic people are currently in work. So clearly more needs to be done to provide accessible workplaces to us and accessible jobs for us. Because why shouldn't we have them, you know? If I can do a job just as well as an able person, if you just turn the light off so the buzzing isn't doing my head in, why shouldn't I have that job? provided I'm the best person for it. Obviously, I'm not saying anyone should just employ me as a brain surgeon because I want some cash. I'd love to hear your opinions and your experiences and stuff like that in the comments. And I'm gonna go. I hope whoever you are, wherever you are, you're having a lovely morning, day, afternoon, evening, week, month, whatever you're in. I hope it's a good one. And I'll see you in a few days.